time when divine beings and legendary animals overwhelmed the scene of antiquated Greece. The Underworld, an endless underground scope, was beneath the command of Hades, the master of the dead. This domain, full of shadows and echoes, was not, as it were, a place of discipline or rest but, moreover, a space filled with complicated divine parts and obligations. Charon was no exemption, born from the union of two of the foremost antiquated and primordial substances. Middle Easterner, the exemplification of the profound haziness that lay underneath the soil, and NX, the exceptional substance of the night that encompassed the world of Charon, acquired the seriousness of his reason with a nearness as ancient as time itself. This Ferryman floated between the boundaries of the world of the living and the domain of shadows. The waters of the river Styx, and acorns dim and strange winds through the underworld, checking the boundary between life and passing. Whispers of misplaced souls held up to be listened to. Charon, with his shadowy pontoon, was the one competent at doing so, whereas Hades ruled over the souls and managed their predeterminations. Charon got them in the beginning with a step towards endlessness. His nature, manufactured within the union of haziness and night, made him idealize for this errand without judgment or feeling. He performed his work to guarantee that each soul reached its last goal within the tremendous domain of Hades. When the souls come to the edge of the underworld, they are welcomed by the puzzling figure of Charon. His appearance, even though it reflects the reality of his part in this strict section between life and death. With his vessel adjacent and his hand outstretched, he held up each soul to have its coin prepared. The antiquated Greeks considered the funeral rite of the most extreme significance, and one of the foremost basic hones was to put an able, a little coin, within the mouth or over the eyes of the perished. This act was not essentially ceremonial, it spoke to the final blessing, an advertising that would permit the expired soul to cross the streams, and Aaron, without that coin, Charon would not permit entry. Souls arriving without the valuable token were in critical straits. Despite their arguing or howling, Charon would not yield, for after the rules of the underworld were over, he felt sorry for his kindness. These disastrous souls were caught on the banks of the waterway, meandering without rest or reason, condemned to endlessness without coming to peace on the other side. Hermes, the divine courier, frequently accompanied these souls on their travel. Even though his primary errand was to direct the spirits to Charon, he seemed not to mediate within the ferryman's choice. So whereas a few souls set out to their final goal, others were cleared out behind in a ceaseless state of holding up with each soul. He crossed Charon, fulfilled his obligation as the fundamental bridge between two genuine substances, uninfluenced by the stories or feelings of those who sought to cross them. His commitment to the laws of the underworld was absolute. The stream Styx, whose dull waters were said to be so effective that they might swear unbreakable pledges, extended like an obstruction between the world of the living and the underworld. Adjacent to it, another waterway, the Charon, streamed with the anger and torment of souls that may not cross these streams, full of misleading streams and concealed animals that challenged any conventional vessel. Charon's vessel, in any case, was not standard. It was made of dull wood that had developed within the depths of the underworld. It ingested the obscurity and secret of the streams. It cruised. Its edges were clean and smooth, reflecting the ethereal shadows of the souls. It carried the oars carved with complex designs cut through the waters with the exactness and style that Charon seemed to accomplish. As they boarded the boat, they felt a sense of calm despite the haziness that encompassed the boat. There was a tranquility approximately it, maybe due to the certainty that once on board, the travel to the great beyond was inescapable. Charon, with his dull tunic and his face covered up beneath a hood, controlled the boat with unfaltering hands. directing the souls through the perilous streams without deviating for a minute. Every so often, the stream water would churn, uncovering snakes or irate spirits attempting to reach the pontoon. But the pontoon, saturated with the control and reason of Charon, moved forward undisturbed, carrying the souls to their last goal within the underworld. Hence, day after day, night after night, in a time where the sun never shone and the haziness never yielded, Charon and his both were on a consistent, unending journey into eternity on the bleak banks of the stream Styx and Oakseed. It was uncommon to see anybody with the warmth of life still in their veins, sometimes be that as it may, single or go with figures still alive, show themselves sometime recently. Charon, with purposes that went past the unimportant travel to the underworld. Charon, the artist and poet with the firm voice, was one such courageous man. After losing his adored city and losing hope, he chooses to wander into the underworld to bring her back with his lyre in hand. He stood up to Charon, knowing that he may not pay or influence the Ferryman Charon to play a melody so sweet and strong that indeed, the impassive Charon was touched by his regret. Without a word, he permitted Orpheus to cross over, moved by the musician's deep sadness. Hercules, the legend of superhuman quality and divine missions, also experienced Charon in one of his 12 labors. He was to capture the three-headed canine Cerberus and bring him to the world of the living. Arriving on the shores, Hercules carried no coins but his forcing nearness and the ferryman gone before him. Even though Charon was hesitant to begin with, knowing that the hero was beneath the orders of the divine beings and that it would be rash to resist such plans, he at last yielded and permitted Hercules to cross. Whereas she is not a heroine in the conventional sense, Psyche's story also drives her to cross the stream of the underworld. In her journey to rejoin her cherished Eros, she had to confront a few challenges set by Aphrodite, one of which was to get a few of the water from the Styx. Even though she was dreadful, her honesty, goodness, and truthfulness earned her the regard of Charon, who helped her in her mission. These encounters were exemptions in Charon's schedule. Most of the time he as it were saw desperate souls looking to cross over, but these stories of courageous living men who challenged to defy the rules of the underworld appeared that indeed within the domains of passing, adore, and bravery may take off a check on Charon. Over a long time, Ian had seen incalculable souls pass through his watercraft. Each soul had a story from the past, but the ferryman once in a while appeared intrigued or feeling. His assignment was clear, and his purpose was enduring. In any case, there was a time when Charon himself was included in the plans of the divine beings. It is said that there was an event when the pixie men permitted a mortal to cross the rivers without paying the due tribute. This act did not go unnoticed by Hades, who, feeling that the sacrosanct rules of the underworld had been broken, chose to rebuff Charon. As discipline, Hades expelled Charon from the underworld for 1 year. Amid that time, the souls of the dead collected on the banks of the stream Styx, and Charon holding up in an attempt to be carried to the other side. Chaos and loss of hope grasped those lost spirits, and the adjustment between life and death was exasperating. As Charon lived out his banish, he meandered the mortal world without a vessel to guide him or rivers to cross. The ferryman experienced a vacancy. He had never felt time. He watched people, their transient lives, and their fears of death, and began with time. He felt an association with them when the year of Oust finished. Charon returned to his post, within the underworld, but with a modern viewpoint. Even though he remained undercover and quiet, he presently carried with him a subtle understanding of the esteem of each soul that crossed in his pontoon. Charon's return to the underworld was a help to misplaced souls. Adjustment was re-established, and the cycle of life and death proceeded.